Thank you for joining us. Let's get into other conversations now. The manufacturing industry in Nigeria is an economic sector that brings approximately 10% of the total gross domestic product each year, as the sector is dominated by the production of cement and building materials, food and beverages, tobacco, chemicals and fertilizers, wood and textiles generating the greatest value. Despite the significant impact of the sector on the overall economic growth, it is, however, faced with myriads of challenges such as unfavorable regulations, policy inconsistency, poor infrastructure and insecurity, and most recently, cash crunch, stifling its potential. So let's get talking now. To speak more on these, I've been joined by agribusiness entrepreneur and chief executive officer, Friska Farms Limited, Usmani Mana. He joins us virtually now. Thank you for joining us and good to see you now again.
Good morning. Good morning, Frank. Good to see you as well.
Yeah, good morning. So let's begin our conversation with the cash crunch faced by the Nigerians in the first quarter of this year. How can you assess the impact of this development on the manufacturing sector? Perhaps you can give us a background experience to this.
Okay, so my experience in running a business and manufacturing, I don't think that we've ever had it this bad, right? That cash crunch, I know a number of businesses that, practically shut down because of the unavailability of cash. You have to understand that, where we get, those of us in agribusiness manufacturing, where we get our raw materials at affordable price are places where those sources are cash dependent, right? They're cash dependent, meaning that you need to take cash to them to be able to make a purchase. It got so bad that some parts up north, right, people started trading by barter because those guys don't have bank accounts and they are cash dependent. And these are the people that you can get raw materials at very good deals from. So that's even on the raw materials side. We have cases of, like in Lagos, staff members not even able to come to work. The challenges, the impact is multifaceted. And I pray that, we never have to experience anything like this ever as a country. So you have cases where people make sales. So even the retail outlets are not selling as much because people don't have cash. And you would know that during that period, the banking system, online banking system, had a challenge. People were not able to transfer. Cards were not functioning. So it was as if the economy was grounded to a halt, literally.
Okay. So do you think we are beginning to recover from the impact of the cash crunch on businesses? Are we recovering?
Yes, gradually. Gradually, business is picking up. People that were hesitant on releasing cash, the thing with incidences like this is that it's not just the impact of no cash. It is also what it does to the mind of people. People start to hold back to cash and not want to spend. People start to hold back to money. They don't even want to make payments, don't want to make payment obligations because of the uncertainty. But all that has eased. So we're seeing that, I am sure that when the purchasing manager index comes out for April and May, it will be significantly higher than February and March because people are able to purchase, transactions are happening and all that. But like COVID, the impact is not just felt immediately. There's a multiplier effect that comes in the future. We will definitely have to pay for that drop in production, one way or the other, and it's usually not immediate.
Okay.
So I mean, I strongly believe that, I don't have data to back this, but there's no way that, you have that kind of halt and then you don't pay the consequences. The consequences don't come back to haunt you in the future. I just pray that, there are consequences that we can handle.
Okay. Perhaps we've learned our lessons, and maybe we should be able to pick off from some of these things that happen and make adjustment for future, development or event. So, I mean, this administration has less than 27 days to wind down, right, to the end of the administration. So, we have next administration to come up. So, what would you consider the most challenging for the manufacturing sector? That's of regard to setting agenda for the incoming government, so that they can kick off immediately, hit the ground running, and set the manufacturing sector on the path of complete recovery. Talk to us about that.
Okay, so a couple of things, right? I think that first off, so I put them in three buckets. The first is regulation, right? The second is infrastructure, and then the third is financing, right? So infrastructure is, so for regulation, right? And I'll speak for people in the food, in the manufacturing, food, especially the food and home care products. So regulation, easing of regulation, things like tax incentives. There are a lot of fees that we have to pay as manufacturers. There are so many. I think that regulation that would harmonize all these payments so that we know on a dashboard that these are the things that we need to pay for. We don't have to start looking around for information or waiting till a regulator comes and tries to shut us down before we are aware of one regulation, one compliance issue or the other. That's one. Then two, the second is financing. I think that, I mean, every government has said this, but I'm not sure where this government sits. This new government sits where this applies. But there's a subsidy removal. Whether it's going to happen or not is a separate kettle of fish. But if that happens, I think that funds should be put aside for production, for manufacturing. There should be funds that genuine manufacturers can access at very, very minimal interest rates. If you ask me, I'll say interest free, because the government benefits from this fund in terms of job creation and tax that these manufacturers are going to pay. And that's not just even all. The government will still benefit in terms of foreign imports dependence, savings that they will make on balance of trade when it comes to FX. So the benefits are there. So that fund should be created for manufacturers to access, if not at zero interest, but at either zero interest or at very, very low interest rates. Then the third is infrastructure. Government should be able to. It's a good thing that power has been taken off the exclusive list, and we've seen states like Lagos coming up with their electricity policy. So behind paper, we need to see government, putting their money, their mouth where their money is, putting action behind the policy.
Right.
So things like looking at mapping out a state and looking at areas where you have lots of manufacturers and seeing how you can initiate public-private partnerships to see that players come in and provide electricity at reasonable rates, even if there's a little premium to it, but constant electricity. So you have people that can set up probably gas plants the way you have in the private estates in Lekki, but this time for industrial areas and power them. So I think government should try to catalyze that movement. Roads and infrastructure, they are ongoing. They should be ongoing. But you see,
Okay.
power is one of the key things that manufacturers, that slows down manufacturers. So if now that the policy is there to democratize power generation and distribution, government should now go the step forward, the next step, to catalyze those kind of catalyze those kind of initiatives that would
ideas.
provide that structure to manufacturing clusters. So these are, there's more than this, but these are the three key things that I think that any serious administration should pay attention to.
I know the president-elect, he's been talking in recent time how he's going to perhaps address a lot of challenges in the economy. He has also promised to build on the legacy of this current administration as well by the time he comes into office. So perhaps we need to also flash back in retrospect and look at the success story of the manufacturing sector in the 80s, in the 90s, in the early 2000s, where we have the textile industry working very well. Quite a lot of success story. But how do you think we can replicate these, success story of old days across the industry today?
So for me, I always say that there's nothing new under the sun. There are policies that were in place at that time that made these things work, right? So people say that, I've heard people say, yes, it's one thing to manufacture, it's another thing to have the market. And we have a population that is actually skewed towards foreign products, right? Because when you manufacture, there are foreign competitions, and that's one of the things that discourages people from going into manufacturing. But the truth is, no country that has attained the heights in manufacturing today started at that point. There was a time when made in China, made in Taiwan, made in Japan were low grade. But because the government put in policies in place to see that they created or they initiated markets for these products, there's no manufacturer that is going to start manufacturing and start with their best products. It is the fact that you are manufacturing, there's a market that is taking your product, giving you feedback, and purchasing, giving you feedback, and the cash that you need to do research and development and to invest in innovation.
Okay. Let me quickly
to get Nigerians to buy Nigerian products. We're 200 million people. There's enough market to do that.
Okay. I know you talked about...
Sorry, you were saying?
Yes, just pardon me to jump in here. I know you talked about things that the incoming administration should focus on. You talk about infrastructure, you talk about interest rate, and foreign exchange rate, sorry. You talk about that as well. So what do you suppose are the most promising areas for growth in the Nigerian manufacturing sector, and what investment opportunities are available in these areas so that we can begin to focus on some of these areas? It's important for us to look at the manufacturing sector holistically, but there are growth areas specifically that we can focus on.
I think that the first is food. Okay. There are so many mouths to feed, and the increase in exchange rate makes it difficult for people to bring foreign products that are pricey. So food is one end. The other area, I think, and this is a personal opinion, I think that with the coming online of the Dangote industry, the fact that a couple of small steel mills have come in place. So it's not just for the Dangote refinery. I'm not even looking at the petroleum products or the diesel. I'm looking at the petrochemical. So that petrochemical is going to produce 77 different variants of polypropylene. In any nation that has really industrialized, two key things are required: steel and polypropylene. I think that Nigerians need to open their eyes to the opportunities. So, for instance, we have to produce tires, and let me just talk off the top of my head. To make tires that are used in cars, what you need is rubber and polypropylene. Before now, people had to import those resin chips and all that. But now it's going to be produced. It's going to be produced as a byproduct of a refinery in Nigeria, and then we have steel. So people need to start looking at.
I guess we lost connection with Usman Mana.
I can hear you.
Okay, all right. We have you back now. Please continue on that thought.
So
please.
PVCs, for instance, PVCs that we use for ceilings, pipes, PVC for pipes and plumbing. These are things that erstwhile used to be imported, but now you have the raw materials and with just a mold. You know, a small factory with mold, we can produce these things locally, and these are things that we erstwhile used to import, spend a lot on importing. Coating for cables and the likes. These are things that are derivatives of polypropylene, right? I think that also automobile, right? We need to see with steel and polypropylene again, components of cars. We need to start seeing small factories that produce things like crankshafts, fan belts, things like car seats, the leather for car seats and all that. Even things as little as phone casings, right? With polypropylene, you can make casing for all those phone accessories that we import from China. They are things that you can set up a factory with mold and start making. And those things are things that, you know, they're like fast-moving consumer goods. So there are lots of opportunities in that area. But Nigerians need to be able to see those opportunities. It's one thing for opportunities to be present. It's another thing for you to understand the opportunities and be willing to key into them. And so those are the areas. And, you know, all these things are dependent, of course, on the seriousness of government to create, you know, to invest in infrastructure that will help people to be able to convert the raw materials to end products. And also protect Nigerian products by making it slightly difficult for other products to come in and compete. There should be a premium or incentive for somebody taking the risk to produce in Nigeria. There should be something that protects people. It shouldn't be easier for you to import and sell than it is for you to manufacture locally and sell. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Okay. Two things before I let you go, Usman. One is you talk about your expectations of the incoming administration. Yes, quite important, really. But how is the manufacturing sector planning to engage with the incoming administration? Of course, which I think should start now. There's no right time, but now. Secondly, your outlook for the manufacturing sector, so we can wrap up.
Okay, so the manufacturing sector in Nigeria is pretty much organized. We have, MAN, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, and you will recall that even before the election, I think the current president-elect, the only debate or session that he really granted was with SMEs and members of MAN. So that's to show you how, you know, I think that's an indication of how serious this the Manufacturing Association of Nigeria is, and probably how seriously the president-elect sees that sector. I've heard that, you know, production is something that he is very, very keen about. But again, we have to wait for the first few days to see what policy directions will come before we can conclude. I need the second part of the question.
Okay. So I was, you know, how you are engaging with the incoming administration, and maybe give us your outlook before we wrap up.
So I think, and you can call me. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, so you can call me a hopeless optimist. I think that, you know, I think that things cannot get worse. I think that this new administration will. I think that with the policies that have come in place prior to them coming on board, I think that they have good grounds to be able to, you know, create that kind of environment, especially with power, with the removal of power from the exclusive list. I think that they have the ingredients it takes, you know, to set this sector in motion. What I think is key that should happen is more engagement. with, of course, the organized body of manufacturers, more engagement with. I think that if the presidency, if this government can set up a body that seriously engages with manufacturers and bodies like chambers of commerce and industry, I think that the pace will be faster.
Okay.
And that's a personal opinion, but I think that the pace is going to be a bit faster, especially because, we've overcome COVID and other challenges, and this president-elect has said that that he is not going to pursue the cash policy that led to the cash crunch. So we are optimistic that things will, and then globally there's the dollarization movement. So these are good times ahead.
Okay, I need to let you go there. Thank you so much for your time on the program, Osman Imana, CEO, Friska Farms Limited. Thank you for coming on board.
My pleasure.
Have a great day. You'll be watching Business Breakfast. We're broadcasting live from our studios here in Lagos, the nation's commercial capital. Still to come after the break. Brent futures fell 13 cents to sell at $75.19 a barrel, while US West Texas Intermediate crude also declined by 13 cents, trading at $71.53 a barrel. I'll bring you more details in a moment. Stay with us.